Welcome, everyone. My name is John Boydnott, and you've come to Everything Entrepreneurship, which is a podcast I do every so often here on the internet and on my Substack, and also on my LinkedIn newsletter and others, where I talk to entrepreneurs about the companies that they're building and what they're doing in the world and what their missions are. And today I'm joined by my good friend, Fiona Scott of the UK, who is a PR maven and a good longtime friend. And how are you doing, Fiona?
Really well, thank you. Really lovely to see you, John, from early in the morning where it's tea time here in the UK.
It's not even that early in the morning here. I just make it seem a whole lot worse than it actually is. And so it's very nice to have you here. And I've had you on the show before, and I'd love to have you just review, though, for those who haven't met you here yet, what you're all about, what you do, where you're at. Go ahead.
Okay, so I've been a journalist for getting on for 37 years in the UK. I started in newspapers. I went from newspapers to television. So I did that for 20 years. I was made redundant from my job, and now I'm a freelance working journalist. And I have run my own small PR agency in the UK for 16 years, and it's been fun.
Yeah, both you and I think one of the things about you and I that really connects us is that we've both gone through this process where we were in the journalism game for a period of time. And then we realized that it was made apparent to us by those who we were working with that we were redundant or whatever it may be. And we had to make a transition over to how is it going? It seems like you're having a lot of success over there, right?
Yeah, I think success is relative. Yeah, I run an agency. I work with people I like, doing a job that I love and that I'm good at. And the company has been six-figure turnover in pounds for about 10 years. And I'm very proud of that. And I hope we can keep it going. I always think success for me is if I can make a quid. That's what we call a pound in the UK. If we can make a quid, we're happy and we don't owe anyone any money and we're having fun.
Yeah, and you have quite a stable of clients that you've been working with. And if some go, you find new ones, and it's worked out very well for you. Yeah, I know that you're talking a lot lately. In addition to the fact that we met in person in Las Vegas at a conference a few years back, I keep up with you on LinkedIn primarily. You do a great job on LinkedIn. One of the things that you've been talking about more in some of your posts there with actual video is some of the guests that are going to be at your conference. You're doing a conference. What's it like? And it's your first time. What's it like creating a conference for the first time? And what's
Um,
this one?
it's quite scary to do something like that because you literally are putting a lot on the line with a lot of upfront costs, which for a real small business is a big deal. But it's a 2-day conference. I call it my No BS Media Summit because one of the things I talk about in the world of PR when I was a full-time journalist, I was every day I had a load of BS thrown at me, often by other PR people. So I've prided myself on being very honest and upfront, quite blunt sometimes. So it's an honest approach to PR. So day one is a day with 5 working journalists in the UK, 3 are national. One's a documentary maker that I used to work with in television, and one is a local business journalist covering a whole range of subjects. And then day 2 of those journalists stay on and we do a masterclass. Because the thing with PR and the media is you need to be doing stuff that the media are going to write about or be interested in. You can't sit back and just wait for it to happen and they'll just turn up. They'll on through the ether and find you. They won't. There's going to be a focus on one of my clients who's already been there, seen it and done it. It's going to be about public speaking. It's going to be about personality and brand. And then I'm going to create a pitch, which is based on a TV show here called Dragon's Den, which I think in the US is called or was called Shark Tank. So you're going to pitch to the journalists and they're going to tell you if the stories are any good or not.
Oh man, that would be so fun. Because as a journalist myself for a long time, and still quasi journalist, I get pitched. If I go to my inbox right now, there's going to be 5 to 10 pitches in there with the 60 to 70 other bits of spam that I receive. And it's just that's something that I always enjoyed so much was talking to people live about in person and about whatever may be their company that they're working on and their mission in the world. But so it sounds like you're really trying to get the folks to nail down what makes their company work. And I suppose so for the small business owners who are watching, what are some, package it like it's a listicle on a blog. What are 3, 4, or 5 big tips that you would want to make sure if you're talking to entrepreneurs? The biggest issues that entrepreneurs have in terms of getting their pitch right so that journalists are interested when they encounter the pitch.
Okay, I would say just put yourself in the shoes of the journalist or the editor of the publication and really think about, would they write about this? Would they record a podcast on this? So things like your exciting new website or the fact you've changed your logo a bit. No. Or look at my exciting new e-course, which I get really regularly. No. But it's all about people, really. So what's happening in the business? Have you just opened a new shop somewhere? Have you employed your first apprentice who's a local person, who's an interesting person? I don't know. Has your TikTok had 2 million views? That actually was a story I did for a client of mine. It might not make the news in the US, but it would make the news in the UK.
No, it depends. It depends if something is viral and is going to get the journalist slash media publication, whatever it may be, if it's going to get them a bunch of traffic, that's everything is like delves into PR more. It shades into PR more. You have to think about what are the PR needs of the publication that you're interacting with. Okay, so that's a few things. What are any other tips that you would want to make sure? I know it varies for each entrepreneur you talk to.
It does vary for each entrepreneur, but there are things like in the UK, we are terribly obsessed with the weather. You may have come across the fact that we had really strong winds this weekend, nothing like some people in America experience, but strong winds. And so the media go mad for that stuff. So if, for instance, in December it snows here and the snow might be that thick, the media will be talking about it. So the best story I ever got for a client was a 30-second clip of a dog rolling in the snow, which an online media outlet wanted the clip and then paid her something like £200 a month for 2 years to keep using it on their site. Now, at first glance, that isn't a news story, but it's the way things are moving. Like you talked about, it's a very clickable story. So the pure journalist in me thinks, what a load of rubbish. But we've got to live in the real world. And also, things that are fun and quirky can make the best stories in my own community. Someone put I've got to tell you this, and your viewers, John, they put a road sign on the road, and it should have said, it was keep clear, but they got the K and the C the wrong way around. So it was keep CEEP, clear, beginning with a K. That went viral in the UK. A silly story. But so I think humor is something to remember. Something that's quirky and humorous can go really viral and the media can pick up on it because it's just light and shade. There's a load of bad news around. We can find that quite easily. Sometimes finding something that's a bit lightweight is just fun.
It seems to me that when you're working with people who have companies and they're trying to get their entrepreneurship launched and out there, and they don't have any real sense of what makes something newsworthy. All you're really trying to do on your end is just get them acclimated to the environment. Is in terms of how you pitch. Like maybe they don't have anything that actually would be newsworthy, but if you can get their head in the game and what people in the media are looking for to cover, then I would think that could be a victory just by itself, right?
Yeah. I often talk about with entrepreneurs, trying to switch on their news sense and get out of their own head about what they think is important compared to the media. And the reason you do that is because the media is usually well established. Their sites have much higher domain authority than yours. And it's about building your credibility over time. So for most entrepreneurs, that would be focusing on their areas of expertise, commenting on stories where they have a credible reason to comment upon them. So in the UK recently, that would have been, we had a big budget. We've got a lot of financial issues here. That budget was quite controversial. That is going to roll on and on. So for certain clients, that story is going to come up again and again. And of course, you've had an election and there are going to be stories that roll on and on for you in the US. But it's also remembering that for most entrepreneurs, the best publicity is in the community where they live. We get most of our clients, you and I might be something of an exception, but for most businesses, it's about local business, local engagement. And while national and regional coverage is lovely, does it really drive business?
Yeah, not so much. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's great. Yeah, it seems to me that what you're really running is to some extent a media training, ongoing guidance situation, which is just as much needed as anything else, really, at this point for entrepreneurs. Also, now you're telling me that you're putting together your second book.
Yeah.
Just review what the first book was and what this one's going to be. It sounds to me like it's war stories from the trenches of.
Well, the first book was called, which is available at the big bookshop on the internet. That was called The Hard Yard, and it was really about my first 10 years in business. As someone with no business background, no desire to run my own business whatsoever, nobody in my family ran a business. It's about the millions of mistakes I made in those first 10 years. The second one, I thought I'd go back, because the thing people ask me about the most, and share some of the stories about my first 5 years in journalism as a sort of backwater parish news journalist in the UK, in various small towns in the southwest of England, because I think people would be surprised and sometimes shocked about the kind of things that happen, even if you're working on a little weekly paper. It's just an interesting, fascinating, challenging job.
Yeah. Give me one or two war stories that I keep calling them war stories. I hope that doesn't it doesn't for me, I think in all the years that I've spent working in media, there are different situations, little ones and big ones, and I just call them war stories. Different as a TV reporter in Santa Barbara, I did freeway chases. There was one very large series of storms that came in all at once and gave us these giant puddles that blocked intersections. It was small town TV reporting. But what are some stories that you'll be including in that you are including in
Oh,
that book?
okay. They're bizarre and brilliant. I call them, in my head, they're bizarre and brilliant. Bizarre was shadowing a police sergeant in his police car in the late 1980s in my own hometown, where I was brought up, where I went to school. And we got mobbed outside a pub in the UK by people I went to school with. And they literally lifted the car up with me in it. They
Wow.
were all very drunk. And the poor police sergeant handed me his truncheon, because we don't have guns. Police don't have guns here in the UK. They have a truncheon, and handed it to me and said, please don't put this in the article, but if anyone comes through the window, just hit them. And I would have hit them. I can assure you, I was totally terrified. You don't expect that in a rural area at all. Another one I had was more serious. I worked in a small town near Bristol called Keynsham, and the local chocolate factory, which was a major employer, I was tipped that it was going to close, which was devastating for that economy. And the tip was very solid. So I took a chance and wrote an article, and they literally brought out a special edition of the paper just about that, because the impact of that on that community would have been, and indeed was, about 6 months later, totally devastating, and it took them years to recover. So that made the national news in the UK as well. That was where a very small story became a bigger story.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it reminds me of the way that the newspaper situation in the US used to be, where there was a morning newspaper that was overnight set up and printed and all that. And you received it on your doorstep at 5 or 6 a.m. And right around 1 or 2 p.m., there would be a second. This was before there was an Instagram. This was before there was a
Yeah.
social media. This was even before really there were phones where we could get news all the time. And so there was the afternoon, 1 to 2 p.m., 3 p.m. We would get another newspaper that day. And it only cost a quarter. So it wasn't like it just reminds me of that, where the latest news was on, a more recent version of the news was on. And it was a different time. Sometimes I think back on that, and that was just the way we lived then. And anyway, as far as engagement goes, you have a knack for online engagement. It's one of the things that I try to interact with folks who know how to do that better, because there's the idea that perhaps I might learn something from them. Maybe some of what you got going on will rub off on me, and I'll be able to get more people interested in whatever I might be putting out onto the internet. Well, one of the areas that you do a great job that I follow you on is LinkedIn, and I wanted to get maybe some I wanted to look at with you some of the key things that you do that are part of how you program or structure your LinkedIn, how many you put out a week, that type of, you don't have to get into too many specifics, but what are some of the basic principles behind how you put together your updates, how many you put out, why it's important that you talk about certain topics. I would love to just pick your brain for our
Okay.
viewers on that.
I'm not particularly techy, and I don't get I'm not interested particularly in what the algorithm's doing and what the latest thinking about at what time you should post. I'm just not that person. And also, I just think that all moves so fast
Yeah.
that it's hard to be on top of it. And unless you're employing or have the money to employ someone to do it for you and they're good at being on top of it, I have made the decision to believe that consistency is key and consistently showing up. I've messed about with it a little bit, but generally I aim on LinkedIn is really important for me. I am on other social media platforms, but not as much. So I do 3 long posts a week. And by that, the technical term, long form posts, I write until the little red thing comes up that says I've written too many characters.
How many characters is that? Like
God, I
500?
don't know, John. Don't ask me. That's too technical.
I'm writing notes here. I'm
Yeah.
writing notes. Keep going.
I
What
literally
else?
write it. I write it until it's, and then I go through and edit it. I found that ending with a question is quite a good thing because I don't know, most of us are tuned in. If we're asked the question, what's your favorite color? We'll say, so you get good interaction. I always upload a picture,
Yeah.
whatever the picture is, even if it's pictures I've taken while taking my dog for a walk in the morning, because you can tag people in the picture. So I will tag 3 or 4 buddies. Sometimes it will be you, sometimes others, because then they will get a direct notification. And that is my signal to them. It'd be really helpful if you would comment on this.
Yeah.
Where possible, if the subject matter is something I know that they've got knowledge of, they're more likely. I do that. And then I schedule it using LinkedIn's own little tool. So I click on the little clock and I schedule it. So I'll post long form Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I don't post at weekends generally. Then if I've got a really busy week, I will have scheduled that on a Saturday. And then I'll not worry about it for another week. Occasionally, if I've been, last week I went to the House of Lords in the UK with a client. So I might share a nice couple of picture stories on the Tuesday and the Thursday, but I don't stress about it. And the other thing I do is I always pay attention to second and third connections who are commenting, and I thank them and I connect with them. So I'm always bringing new people into my circle. So I pay attention to second and third connections. And if someone sends me a direct message that is something to do with a post and not trying to sell me stuff I don't want, I will always say thank you. So it's probably that works for me and means that probably at least once a month, maybe twice a month, I will get someone who wants to buy something from me or
Yeah,
have a
that's
conversation about buying from me.
yeah.
And I found for me in my agency and with all the other stuff I've done, that's quite a good return. And also, the fact is, I'm full of stories, so I want to share stuff. So it's not the
Yeah.
subject. Do you know what I mean, John? It's not just about what I'm doing and the clients I'm working with. I share things about what it's like to be in business, and I will talk about the great things and the not so great things.
For me, as a longtime reporter, journalist, it was always difficult getting over the transition to being more social and putting my person. For some people, it just comes very natural. They can put their personality right out there and use that as a way to get whatever they're working on to be seen by more people. For me, it's always been a little bit more of a hill to climb to put my stuff out there socially. In a way where I revealed more about my life and got people interested that way so that it could end up coming up with or creating opportunities to work together.
Mm.
Like you're talking, for me, that transition has always been a little bit harder. And so I've had to work hard to get over that and just be like, hey, put who you are out there more. And some of my friends out there would say, what are you talking about? You're out there all the time. But I think writing down the stories of things that have happened in my life is not something I've been able to really put out there as well. But it's great to see you do that. And it's an inspiration for me
Oh,
as I
thank
as
you,
I try
John.
I try to put more of myself out there. Anything else that you'd like to say about your book, about the conference coming up? What are the details on that? Or any stories or anything that you feel like you haven't had a chance to mention that you wish you would have?
No, the summit. Who knows, John? If it goes well in the UK, it's an in-person summit. Maybe you and I can talk about doing one in San Francisco. So if anyone listening to this is interested, let us know and tell us how much you're willing to pay, and we'll base it on that.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. I mean, it's anyone who's working on a company out there has some level of difficulty in translating the importance of their company, their mission, whatever they're doing, to the world out there. It's important to educate people on how to sell themselves, but essentially it's selling yourself. And I
It
think that
absolutely is. It is selling yourself in multiple ways consistently over time. People often try, and don't you find this? They like try and vomit everything or put it all into one press release, for example, instead of taking a breath and thinking, what is the one thing that I can share right now that's relevant? And then next month, what's the next thing? And what's the next thing? And educating people around that. And also to understand that us journalists, we're not a separate species that's got to be treated differently to anyone else. We are just human beings and we can be reached. You can keep in contact with us. Just don't send us total rubbish and don't do it every 5 minutes.
yeah. But and for a lot of these folks, they just need to learn what is rubbish and get better at that. And it's
Yeah.
hopefully that's something that people are willing to get your help with.
Or your help with, or our help would be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. It can be fun because you're talking about something that you enjoy and you appreciate.
Yeah.
It's definitely something I would like to do more. But yeah, an idea for a conference like that does sound great. Or who knows, maybe I can come visit you over there and be one of your guest journalists in a future conference as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it goes well, we've got, as of speaking to you, I've got 22 people booked on, and it's an intense 2-day thing. So I'm very happy with that for a first go. If we can get a few more, that will be great. But yeah, I can do it one to a few, one to a many. It's fine. As journalists, we're happy to do that. As long as we can cover our costs, we're happy. Yes, I'm really excited about that. So if people follow you or me, they're going to see that in February. They're going to see what happened.
Yeah, and you go through an intense experience like that, there's no way you're not going to come out the other side with a whole lot that changes how you approach getting your word out there about your company. So it sounds like it's really worth it to me. All right, Fiona, lovely to talk to you today.
And you,
Thank you.
John.
I know it's tea time there. Wait, a question for us Americans. Is tea time the same as dinner time, or is it like a pre-dinner, or how does that work?
Okay, in the UK, Monday to Friday on a working day, tea time and dinner time are the same thing.
They're the same
Okay,
thing.
it's the same thing. Yeah, we tend to say breakfast, lunch, tea, stroke, dinner.
Yeah.
At weekends, it's a bit more flexible. It's a very old-fashioned term, actually, tea, which I think originally was rich people who were totally bored would have tea and cake at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Those days are largely gone. So yeah, tea and dinner interchangeable. So in the UK, it's nearly 6 o'clock at night. So I'll take the dog for a walk and then we'll do tea.
And of course, it's dark now. It's 6.
It is dark and it isn't, the lights are not for Christmas, folks. I have these lights all the time.
You're festive all year. That's a good
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. If I turn the computer around that way, you'd see what it really looks like at Christmas. But hey.
I'm sure it looks lovely, whatever it may be. But
Yeah.
Fiona, you're one of my favorite people. I look forward to having you back on the show again soon. And thank you for all the help and patience that you give me. And I hope to be able to return the favor this time.
Oh, thanks, John. Take care.
You too, Fiona.